Servus and welcome to another episode of Pro Hockey Pod, episode 66. This week got a special guest on, someone that we just talked about it off camera. I actually played against in D3 College. He was at Hobart. I was at Oswego. So it's always good to have guys on like this that, come from the D3 route and kind of get past that D3 stigma. And, he's had a good career for himself in terms of coaching, risen up the way up to NCAA Division I head coach at Long Island University. Happy to discuss some things with him and dig deep into his rise. Welcome to the Pro Hockey Pod, Brett Riley.
Thanks, Andrew. Good to talk hockey here.
Always kind of like what I like to do is just to start it off. We kind of take it back to your roots there. So I believe you were born in Needham, Massachusetts. What's kind of like your earliest childhood memory of growing up there?
It's funny. I was actually, I think Elite Prospects may have that wrong, but I was born in West Point and then moved to Needham and then back to West Point and back to Needham. So it's a little confusing. But growing up in West Point, my dad was the coach of West Point at Army there, and he followed in the footsteps of his dad. And now my uncle's kind of in his final year of tenure at West Point as well. So that's kind of embedded in our roots, growing up at a military academy, premier leadership institution and seeing, cadets and the hockey component too. But born into a coaching family, born basically at the rink, if you will, in terms of spending my whole childhood watching Army hockey, jumping on the ice with the guys as soon as I could learn to skate. So I really didn't have a choice in terms of going into hockey and playing. It was here, we're going to drop you off the rink. If you want to jump on the ice, there it is. And then it feels like years later, like I didn't have a choice to go into coaching with just about everyone in the family doing that as well. So followed the family footsteps and no looking back since then.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point there. Like the bloodline in your family of, whether it's players, coaches, like it's just very deep as you mentioned. Bringing up West Point, obviously, I before Oswego went to Niagara University, so they were a team that we played, and obviously went there a couple times. Um, you know, Being a Canadian, like the U.S. Army, to me, probably doesn't mean as much as it does for someone like yourself. But do you think growing up in kind of that atmosphere at that young age, like helped you develop, whether it's the way you are today, maybe routines, how you go about yourself, like at an early age, and you've carried it on till now?
That's a really good question. I think that's, totally true. I think when you grow up at West Point, you think that's just normal life. Like I was joking with our guys in the locker room that I thought it was normal for cadets to be marching by your house at 5 in the morning or, going on runs by your house or the, whole school eating at the mess hall together, to just the uniformity, the structure, the discipline of the place. We just, I took that for granted in some senses. I just thought that was the way of the world and learned actually when I moved to Needham that there's a world outside of West Point. But the habits and the discipline and the leadership that's instilled there is, beyond words and special. And for me, I was able to hopefully, I think, take a lot of that from growing up and try and instill it in our team, whether it's the fitness testing that we do, to our commitment to finishing hits, to blocking shots. Like if you watch an Army hockey team, that is coached by my grandpa, I guess 75 years ago now, to my dad, to Brian Riley, you see toughness, you see discipline, you see team first. Maybe it's not always the A level skill, but you're going to get A+ level compete and work ethic, which I'm sure you can attest to from your time at Niagara. And for our teams, it's no different. We're going to be the most physical team in college hockey. I think we're right up there right now. We're going to block every shot. We're going to come at you hard. And so a lot of those lessons were embedded in me kind of inadvertently. I didn't even realize it from just being at the rink and watching these Army hockey teams and seeing the lifestyle of the cadets and realizing, that's not something that's a skill, that's something that's a choice, and that's something that we can choose to recruit here, even at LIU. So a lot of that childhood and youth era of mine has kind of helped shape the coach that I am today.
That's definitely very true. Going there, especially when you played games in Army, you knew every night you were going to get hit. You knew that they were going to go balls to the wall, basically. And I think that's something, as you mentioned, that they've always taken pride in, and something now that you've transmitted to your program as well. Back to kind of your childhood, you were bringing up like you were kind of here and there, like switching places. Like, what was kind of like the minor hockey path that you grew up with?
Yeah, so growing up in West Point, you're you're not really near much, to be honest. And I think that's the way of the design of the school probably many years ago. I'm not a historian, but I can imagine, they wanted the mountains and the river for tactical reasons. And so we were kind of far from any, I guess you could say, elite level hockey. So I played for the Ramapo Saints, which is about 45 minutes away. Kind of became one of those like super teams where we had kids coming in from, Connecticut, New Jersey, and I don't think anyone's still playing outside of Kyle Palmieri. He made a pretty good name for himself as kind of our star player, but was able to play there for some time. And then, like I said, when we had relocated up to Boston, played on the Boston Junior Terriers, and was fortunate actually once my dad got out of coaching at Army that he was able to coach me. So we were lucky to have a Division I head coach, coaching our Bantam team, implementing systems and shot blocking and hit. I don't know if our team was necessarily ready for that, but it was pretty cool to have him as a coach. From there, I played, 2 years of high school hockey, or three, excuse me, at Needham High. My junior year, we won the state championship, and then basically everyone flocked to different prep schools. So I went to Governor's Academy for 2 years as a repeat junior and played prep school hockey. From there, I was actually set on running track in college, and had kind of made plans to do that. And then, at the end of the day, I couldn't give up hockey. I couldn't give up. I knew I wanted to get into coaching. So I switched my plans and decided, I didn't want to necessarily play junior hockey. I knew I wanted to be a coach. I knew I wanted to be in hockey in some capacity. So I went right into Hobart at a pretty young age.
Lots to tackle there. You actually have kind of led me into some of my questions, which is good. First one being the kind of like the junior route. So for us Canadians, I would say like we don't really have a prep school is not as popular, and like high school hockey is definitely not the same as it is in the United States. Had you ever had any thoughts of, after those first couple years of prep school, like have you thought about maybe playing tier two junior, maybe trying the CHL or anything like that, or were you always kind of set on, I know what I want to do, and I think it would be best at like Governor's Academy, for example?
Yeah, I think the cool thing was like with my dad, obviously, and our whole family being a wealth of knowledge, he never really tried to overstep or push me in any direction. It was you'll go where you're wanted, you'll go where you can play, and um, whatever happens, happens type thing. So I had changed my plans like plenty of times. I thought I was going to go play junior hockey. I thought I was, like I said, going to run track in college. I had visited a handful of Division III schools to do both. And if you asked me, it depended on the day of what I was doing, for the next year. And then in the spring, I just settled on going to school. I wouldn't say settled. I was proud to go to school in the fall. I knew that my hockey career would probably end in short time. And, coaching and following the family footsteps was something that I wanted to do.
That's a very big, I would say, honest reflection of yourself and decision to make at that age. You mentioned you went to college young, but also like to just be kind of honest with yourself and be like, you know what, like playing wise, it's probably not going to last that long, but I see what's after that, and I want to get into coaching. Like some people don't have that ability to be that honest with themselves, especially at a young age. What kind of attracted you to Hobart? Obviously, from the outside, I believe it's a very prestigious school, very well known. Obviously, we mentioned we had some good battles on the ice, but
Yeah.
like, what kind of drew you to Hobart and to also go to school so young, as I said, instead of maybe enjoying a couple more years of, whether it was junior hockey or whatever it is.
Yeah, I think obviously, I think just talking about junior hockey, that probably looking back at my career and what I was able to do might have been better for me in terms of playing and producing and being a more impactful player. I wasn't physically ready. I don't think I could have used junior hockey. But again, I knew like had I not gone to college, I might have not been able to jumpstart my coaching career at such a young age. And I guess in terms of Hobart. I didn't necessarily know much about it. I knew the hockey program was strong. I knew they had pretty good lacrosse just from growing up on West Point's campus and seeing their lacrosse team come down. And then you go and you visit the place, and it's, a really, really special school. prestigious academics, a history of winning on the ice, which you've seen the last few years too. So, like I had mentioned a few times, Andrew, like my choice changed by the day, to this school, to that school, to junior hockey, to running. And then you step on a campus, and I'm sure it's like that for guys that, settle on whatever school they want. You step on the school and it just feels right. You see the hockey, you see the league. At the time, Hobart was in the ECAC West, and I think all six teams were in the top 15 of college hockey. So, a high level of hockey, a high level, of education, was hard to pass down.
Yeah, I remember some schools in their division that were always good. Obviously, Elmira was there back, or sorry, Utica, sorry, was back then, and then obviously I think was
Yeah,
Newman
yeah.
College. Yeah,
I think Newman was coming off winning a national championship. Utica was obviously always loaded and still are. We were obviously very good. Manhattanville had a really good run, and Elmira was really good. So the league, top to bottom, was insane.
yeah, we always did a lot of like our out of conference games would be in that division because it was just obviously it didn't matter who you played, as you said, there was always competitiveness in it, and the rankings too. Like there was always, I think in our division, there was always Plattsburgh and us, and then maybe Geneseo that would get ranked at time. But in your division, as you said, I think there was at least 4 to 5 schools ranked in the top 20, like at some time during every season. You mentioned kind of your playing career, which I thought was interesting. Like you obviously went early, and looking back, you might have benefited from, taking another year or two or playing junior hockey, whatever it might have been. But, 3 or 4 years at Hobart, like being a guy that was kind of like in and out of the lineup, I'm always curious to ask like people like how they mentally, stayed motivated, stayed positive, were a good team guy. Like obviously I think values were instilled at you at a young age from your family history and being an army. But, how did you specifically, still work hard every day and obviously try to be the best team guy when, you weren't getting the call to the lineup every night?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, like you said, you go in, you believe in yourself, and then you realize a year or two, five, whatever, maybe I wasn't physically ready, this, that, the other. My freshman year, I was, fortunate to play probably the most of my time there, on a really good team. I thought I had a really good summer going into my sophomore year. Earned my way into lineup over time, and then tore my MCL. So that kind of, on a little collision in practice. So that kind of set me back. And then, never really found my game, to be honest, in, out, whatever. And, there was times I think I was super positive and a really good teammate. And there was other times where, you do the woe is me and feel like the world is ending. And I think all those lessons, of playing, not playing, being hurt and being out of the lineup, like they sucked at the time. There's no beating around the bush, but I think it has helped make me a better coach into trying to figure out, what's going through our guys, the guys who are hurt. We just lost a goalie for the year, like, trying to put myself in his shoes. Or we've got, 9 guys, unfortunately, out of the lineup right now. And then we've got freshmen that are going in playing their first game. So trying to, put myself in everyone's position, trying to, now as a coach, pay special attention to maybe guys that aren't playing and reward those guys through practice, and then, create a really competitive culture. And that's one thing, looking back at my time at Hobart, being in, then being out, and, trying to be the best teammate that I could be, is you look back and say that was a really, really competitive culture. Like it was physical, it was fast, practice was really hard. And those are a lot of lessons that I can try and take with me and build through our program here.
You mentioned like taking lessons with you and using it to your program now. Were you also like, whether it was drills that you were doing in practice at Hobart or when you weren't playing and you're sitting in the stands, like, forechecks, breakouts, like were you kind of already putting together maybe your own book on coaching, like maybe finding things that you like that your coach was doing at Hobart, maybe finding things that you think could be done differently and kind of creating your own recipe for coaching even when you were still in college?
Yeah, I think that's one beauty of coaching. Is I don't want to say like it's a copycat's game, but I think that you have your own core values and things you believe in, and leadership skills, but you should take something from everywhere and everyone you've seen. And so we talked about that militant style from West Point, the hitting, the blocking, the not being outworked, the cultures, the cultural values. Then at Hobart, one thing, and you look at them coming off two national championships, is like I don't think it was necessarily, tactics that led to all of the success, but the way in which we practice there was, insane in terms of level of competition. And it was go, go, go. It wasn't, time spent at the board. It was this drill to this drill to this game to that. And I think that just creates a culture of competition. You're always on the move. And like, we live in a world now where we travel so much. So we're off day here, off day there, and you have to do it. And you have to believe in the body management. But one thing I respect from our time at Hobart is, we went for 2 hours, we went hard, and there was no other way about it. Now, we want to be sensitive to our guys, our bodies, their minds, and we have to, we were in South Dakota this year, Indiana and Boston in 20 days. So, but I really respect the put on your hard hat and skate for 2 hours versus, we're a little bit touch and go right now. There's an ice cut, there's body maintenance. And again, we have to do that, but I just thought there was this insane practice culture that I have kind of looked back on at Hobart and said, wow, that really helped prepare the team for Fridays and Saturdays.
It's crazy how the philosophy on coaching practicing has changed like in such a
Yeah.
like short amount of time. You know what I mean? Like 10, what is it, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we were in college and it's just different now. But as you said, it's to your schedule, and to obviously your players, you have to make adjustments, which is, adapt or die, as they say.
Yeah, 100%.
After Hobart, like you mentioned, you wanted to get right into coaching. So you found a job right away at Albany Academy there. You were there for 3 years as a
Yeah.
head coach, which is awesome to step in first out of school. One other thing I saw online that I thought was cool, I had done it myself, and talking to a guest recently, he brought up how scouting helped him kind of understand more, how to pick his players, what to look for, how to evaluate. He brought up a saying that, players these days, it should be or should be looked at as in a crock pot and not as in a microwave. Like they need time to develop. So you scouted for in the QMJHL, I believe, for 2 seasons. Did you feel that doing that as well also kind of helped you learn to how to evaluate players and maybe see players in a different way than you might have before?
Yeah, yeah, I guess I'll kind of give you a long-winded history if that's all right, and I'll hit on that. Is while I was at Hobart, I knew that there was kind of a greater plan, whether it was through being injured or being scratched, or just like my love for hockey. Like I wanted to get into hockey in the worst way, and like some of the advice my dad gave me was like dip your toe in everything. You got to figure out what you are and what you like. Just because he was a coach, then he became a scout, right? And so at that time, I, started a spring and summer hockey program. We started with, I believe, a 96 birth year because I had a few cousins. Then we had a 98 team. Then we had an '02 team. So in the spring and summer of my sophomore, junior, and senior years, pretty much, I would leave school on the weekends. I designed my schedule so I could go coach these like high-end summer teams. We started with one team and like we actually thought we were pretty good. Then we went to one of those super tournaments in Buffalo and got our doors blown off. And I'm like, all right, I'm never driving home feeling this way again. So after that, we loaded up our teams through hard work, scouting, using some family names, hiring some NHL scouts to coach the teams. So we built, I don't want to say a summer hockey empire, but like really, really good teams, which helped get me in the rink. And once I was in the rink, I had connected with one guy for a USHL scouting job. And then I met another guy who I helped with family advising. So I was a scout. I had summer teams, which was kind of being on the bench and learning how to recruit and manage. And then the entrepreneurial side of it. And then had connected with Grant Saunier at the time, who was with the PEI Rockets, who became the Charlottetown Islanders, and had helped him with scouting. So I was able to dip my toe in kind of QMJHL stuff, USHL stuff, summer teams and tournaments, and then family advising. So I was able to like juggle all these balls, work it out with my professors that like leave on Thursday for a tournament or whatever. I was flying out to Blaine for an NAHL showcase or something like that. And at that time, like it just kind of became contagious. I was at my senior year at Hobart. I had a line of top players from Albany Academy, and their coach had stepped down. They had played with me through a few summers there, so a parent had reached out and was like, "Hey, would you be interested in doing this?" So I was hired actually in March of my senior year. So like as our season was ending, I was driving back and forth from Hobart to Albany like every few days to try and re-recruit our team back, find new players, and that's kind of how it all started.
Which is crazy to be juggling. I'm assuming finals exams of your senior year and also building, your next job and your future team and recruiting guys to stay. Um, as I mentioned, you were there for 3 years, and then you made the jump up to back into NCAA, but as a coach, you went to Wilkes University there right away as a head coach, which a common theme I've seen throughout your coaching career is, you rise quickly, and obviously talking to you so far, I can definitely see why. Um, it says online here, like I wanted to ask you, maybe this is something I just wasn't familiar with being so far away from the North America now, but it
Yeah.
says in your first season there, you guys didn't play the season. Like, was that something to do
Yeah.
with building the program or
Yeah.
what happened there?
Yeah. So 3 great years at Albany Academy. My last year we lost in the prep championship, the large school to Avon. We beat them like 8-2 to start the year. And then they had all these kids like Trevor Zegras and Spencer Knight that were freshmen that figured out hockey and they smoked us, I think 8-1 in the finals. But it's not so bad now that half that team's in the NHL. But I was able to, like one of the things that I really love about everywhere I've been able to do is either rebuilding a program or building the program. That takes a special type of like grit and energy and like passion. And so, I had heard that Wilkes University was starting a program in Wilkes-Barre. I didn't know much about it, but I knew like, hey, this could be a chance to put my fingerprints on something and build it. And they had a little bit of a partnership with the Wilkes-Barre Penguins, where I had known a few people, and the first year was just on the road recruiting. So I joke with my staff now. I still have like back pain and like long-term injuries from being in the car that whole year. I think I saw over 1,000 hockey games. I watched a junior hockey game in Charlotte, North Carolina, and then was at a prep school fall game in Maine. I drove through the night. Was in Sudbury watching a junior hockey game to Middle America. Back to Pennsylvania to host kids on visits. That year was probably the hardest year in terms of like how I had to work to build the team, but I just kept telling myself like the effort from this year will either set this program up for success or put us years behind. So we got kind of lucky too. We got like one or two players from New Jersey, and they're like, "Hey, we've got a few buddies that are pretty good players. Can they come too?" I'm like, "Sure." So it became kind of contagious, and I was just in the rink every day to the point where kids like got sick of seeing me and they couldn't say no to me. They're like, "All right, this guy's at the game again. Like, sure, we'll come. Like, if it means you stop following me around." So, we were really lucky. A little bit of hard work meets luck. We were picked for last that first year, our first season. And I thought we had a pretty good team. I didn't really know. We went up to Canton our first game, lost 7-5. I think they scored like 5 power play goals. So I was just totally distraught. I woke up that next morning and they were on Sports Center for a kid going through the legs. And that was our first college hockey game. Totally embarrassed. And then we went on a huge winning streak after that. And we were one regular season win away from, winning the title against Utica. We lost like 2-1 or something like that. So it was really cool to be kind of an underdog, be doubted, be laughed at. I mean, thousands of kids told me no that year on the road, but the right kids said yes. A lot that are still playing professional hockey now. I think we were in the national poll that year in our first year. So it was a really, really rewarding experience to start a program from scratch and to see where the program is today. Tyler Hines, my best friend, has done an amazing job with that program.
You talk about all the work you put in that first year before you could even play, and then obviously to get the gratitude the next year of probably stunning a lot of people who had written you off before the year even started. Obviously a tremendous feat for yourself. Is there a reason that like you made the jump right after that to Colgate? I believe like is or like someone who
Yeah,
had
that
spent so much
was
time, you know what I mean, like building, you would think you'd want to like stay there and kind of see it out, or was like what was the reasoning to go to Colgate?
that's a good question and something I still think about like often. That was truly probably the most fun I've ever had coaching with that group. And like a lot of our players now, I guess when you get a call from the higher levels or, it was like a really tough decision for me and one that I didn't take lightly. A few things that kind of led to that final decision. One, as I had mentioned, Tyler Hines, the assistant coach, like he was totally ready to step in. This guy did an unbelievable job, and I knew the program would still be in good hands. I wouldn't have had that same confidence if it hadn't been him, and that was kind of something I had worked out upon my departure. But obviously, not just going to Division One, but going to a school like Colgate, working for a legendary coach like Don Vaughn. I had never been an assistant coach either. Like I had only ran my own summer company or coached a prep school team or done the Wilkes program. So I felt I like needed to learn and get better. And it was an opportunity like I thought I'd pass down. I didn't necessarily fully want to say yes to. And then it's like a recruit when he goes on a visit. I saw Colgate, I saw the opportunity. The program was kind of towards the bottom of the ECAC, but trending upwards. And I was just like very hungry to put my fingerprints on that. I still um, I don't want to say regret leaving Wilkes, but it was tough, and I'm lucky that those young men were so understanding and happy for me. Still have great relationships with a lot of those guys today, and it's fun to see them now out of college, getting jobs or playing pro hockey. And like again, what that program has been able to do has been fun to watch.
It sounds like it'd always be a special place, like in your heart and mean something to you, which is awesome. But then as we mentioned, you make that jump to Colgate there, first time being an assistant coach, and another challenge for you, I'd say, and a chance for you to learn. How much did you learn from the coach there that year, and just talk about that first season or only season, I would say, at Colgate?
Yeah, you learn a ton as an assistant coach. Because you are trying to watch and kind of, I don't want to say lay in the background, but not necessarily always on the forefront and figure out how can you add value? How can you make the head coach's life easier? How can you be subtle and discreet and help the program? As I mentioned, the staff there at the time, Don Vaughn, Dana Borges, and Jake Pollock, and I guess before that, Coach Harder, they had done a really good job of bringing in the right players. And so it was trending in the right direction. And I think I had to figure out like how to put my own stamp on it. I think areas I was able to really jump in was like culturally, like values we talked about from West Point to this is how we have to lift, this is how we have to train, this is how we have to operate if we want to be successful to whether it be drills, to just like recruiting intensity, to just being a friendly face for the players. That was kind of nice for me. I was used to, I don't want to say necessarily say being the bad guy, but having to really hold guys accountable to maybe at this, venture, being able to build guys up or pat on the back or just a high five or just ask them how they were doing a little bit more than when I was a head coach. You also just learn like Division One is just a different beast in a lot of ways, from compliance to recruiting intensity to looking at younger prospects to pro exposure to the NHL. So you kind of take that all in, and I think there's a lot more tactical prep. With Wilkes, we were able to go out there and win games because our hockey players were better than the opponents 8 times out of 10, 9 times out of 10. At Colgate, you spend the whole week. I was able to help with the penalty kill of how do we keep the puck out of our net? How do we have the goalies ready, for PP threats? How are we in the dot? And how are we gonna, beat Cornell's intensity or Clarkson's forecheck and really study smaller areas of the game? So really good year as well. And then kind of that was when the world stopped. We were having a nice playoff run and COVID hit, and that was the end of that.
It's crazy to think just in terms of COVID, like that we went through that. Like I still
Yeah, no,
think of how weird that was. And I sometimes forget when I'm doing this, oh, 1920, that was when it hit. And um, one thing, as I mentioned before, like throughout your career, you've just risen to the occasion, gone to programs, left your mark, on to the next. And obviously, I think a goal for you probably was to be a head coach in Division One. And you get the chance the next year. Obviously, we mentioned it's kind of still going through COVID, but Long Island University, which I believe had been a program for maybe 1 or 2 years before you, or that might have been the first year, but it was newer. Another program that you can kind of build up, create how you want and create the values, the team values that you believe in. Um, you've been there now for, I believe this is your fifth season. Like, just talk about kind of, where the program was from when you got there to where it is to now, and maybe where you see it being in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, so I think just kind of picking right back up, COVID struck, and I, had went back to Boston to just kind of figure out where the world was going to go. A week later, Long Island University, which had transitioned to Division One just 1 year prior, through a merge with the LIU Brooklyn campus and Post campus. So there was a Division One school and a Division Two school, and they merged and they added women's hockey and different sports, gymnastics, and a few others. And they announced they were going to add Division One men's hockey right during the pandemic. So that was, ridiculed with skepticism and doubt and like, hey, how can you do this? And a lot of people probably ran from that or like laughed at that. I'm like, this is right up my alley, like a chance to build something from scratch, a chance to build something while there's really nothing else to do but watch hockey and call recruits. I had dreamed of being a Division One head coach, growing up and lived in just about every part of New York through Hobart, Albany Academy, Colgate. And so my wife, she at the time worked right in New York City. So I'm like, this is a perfect fit, something I want to be a part of. Went through like a 2 month interview process, started the program, I believe in April or May. And then we were playing games that October. We actually, or November, won our first two games or two of three. We beat Holy Cross and RIT right out of the gate. But that time was like just trying to get kids to come play Division One hockey sight unseen. I had never been to LIU. I had never been to Long Island in a long period of time. I hadn't seen the school. So I was trying to get guys to sign on the dotted line without knowing me, knowing the school. And we've been able to build the program. I don't want to say pretty quickly, but I don't want to say slow and steady either. We've had a nice increase in growth every single year from a 3-win program during COVID to, 16 wins last season to, coming off our best win last week, knocking off Notre Dame 5-2 at Notre Dame. So the program's got better each year from a wins perspective, from a moving guys on to jobs and pro hockey perspective, to an optics, to the way we're treated, to every facet of building a program. So we're really proud of where we're going. We're by no means a finished product. We're real to the fact that we're blue collar and we're building. But it's been fun to build this thing and get better every single year.
One guy you recruited, he was at Arizona State University, is a buddy of mine who's now playing in the DL here in Dusseldorf, Max Ballinson. I think definitely for him it was a good switch coming to a program like that. I think he needed a fresh start, and he told me that he enjoyed his time there. I believe he played 2 seasons for you there at Long Island University. Um, you mentioned the blue collar thing, and again, we're going back to your background, how you were brought up, kind of everything to that. But you know, as the head guy at the university, like what characteristics or types of players are you looking to recruit at Long Island University?
Yeah, I guess to go back to Bally, I would say there's a lot of great things I could say about him, but he's got the hardest shot, I think, the hardest one-timer I've ever seen. I don't know as a goalie if you've seen that or stood in front of it, but he could really, really shoot the puck. And I mean, it was great to have guys like him come in that had been at other schools and say, hey, this is how it's done, but this is what it means to have a new perspective and lease on life. And I don't want to say second chance, but new opportunity. What we're looking for here now is being ultra competitive. Guys talk about hard skill. If you play our team, you're going to get hit. Where pucks are, for the most part, not going to get by our guys. We're going to block everything in sight. But we also now want to make plays. We've got smart hockey players. We've got guys with good sticks. But for us, we're building a program. We're building a culture. There's not many banners. There's no banners, on our walls. So we want guys that are hungry to bring them here versus guys that want to be guardians of something. This is like I said, a blue collar program. We've got guys that have played in the American Hockey League now. We've got so many guys that have played in the East Coast League and gone over to Europe. But we want guys that want to prove people wrong. We want guys that are physically tough. We want guys that can lift a lot of weight away from the rink because we think that hard work and toughness carries over to the ice. Um, but again, like we want skill like the rest of them. Our power play was like 25% last year. So we have guys that can put the puck in the back of the net. But at the end of the day, we want people to leave playing LIU, whether it's Lindenwood, Stonehill, Notre Dame, or Michigan State, and say, wow, those guys are hard, they're heavy, they play the right way, they're well coached, and they're willing to sacrifice for each other.
Definitely a great model. I would say a lot of respect for everything you said there. Going back to Bally, like briefly, I did skate with him because there was years in my pro career where I got contracts late, so I had to go skate with his junior team, which was my hometown, and definitely eye opener seeing him take a slap shot for the first time. Didn't expect something that hard from a 19-year-old, but yeah,
Yeah.
he's got a bomb. Couple more for you here. Like, is there any we talked about it off camera, like, you guys are obviously in the independent kind of conference right now. Is there plans, is there talks or anything like that about you guys joining a conference in the future?
Yeah, I think this is the $1 million question that we get all the time. That I always joke if I had like $5 for every time this question would be asked, we would have a nice rink on campus. But I think that there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of excitement. Like there's nothing concrete or definitive at the moment, but like we say all the time, we just have to keep playing the right way. We have to keep producing. The win at Augustana was great. The win against Notre Dame was great. The way that, we're building in the community, on campus, all of that really matters, and it's helped boost the profile of our school, of our athletic department, of our hockey program. So nothing yet, but it will come in time. In the meantime, we're going to keep focusing on like winning hockey games, doing things the right way, building our attendance, bringing fans in, and we think good things will come. I'll also just continue to schedule great teams. Like our schedule is not easy, but it's made this program so much better. So when we do get in a league, we'll be battle tested and ready to play whatever the opposition may look like.
Yeah, and a good chance, as you mentioned, you probably will have played some of those teams in your division a lot leading up the years leading up to that. So that's definitely a great plan and kind of control what you can control for now. Um, Something that's kind of new that's come out in the media, I personally think it's only a matter of time before it happens, just kind of how it's going. But I wanted to get your opinion. I've asked a lot of the NCAA coaches I've had on recently about it with the new, I'll say potential, but not really potential because I think it'll happen, eligibility rules. So players who've played major junior being still allowed to come the NCAA route after, which obviously right now you had to make a choice, one or the other. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you feel that it'll be good for the game? Is there pros and cons to each argument, or how do you see it?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier, like adapt or get run over. We will see what happens and make a plan for it. I think from a player pool, standpoint, it's great. There just opens up the market to that many more players. So the good recruiters and the people and coaches that are willing to put in the work may get rewarded from a American hockey family standpoint of opportunities for maybe the American born player, because you're opening the doors to so many more players. It will hurt, to be honest, because the player pool is just that much bigger. So there are pros and cons. It really will depend who you ask about this. But for our end, it's not a matter of like if and when. It's a matter of how do we plan, how do we pivot, how do we adapt, where can LIU align themselves to get players? If everyone's running to major junior hockey, does that mean we're better running to the USHL or the BCHL, the North American League? Or, in our case, you could get a flight, from Atlantic, Canada to New York City in 90 minutes, so is that the best place to look because of proximity to the city, or, Toronto to New York? So we are tactically planning for whatever may come, with different ideas. It's it is what it is, I guess you could say. I think there's a lot of ways in which it will grow college hockey, that it will be that much harder to play Division I college hockey. But like I said, will American players take a backseat to Division I hockey? Probably. It strengthens Division I hockey, which I know we both have an affinity for, and it will be good for the game. So I'm curious to see the, repercussions in some senses, but also as the head coach here, I have an obligation to try and figure out how can this make our program better, and how can the added player pool be a benefit to us, because we are willing to put in the work. We are willing to know the player pool. We're willing to get on the road. So Pros and cons, like you mentioned, it depends which school you ask. I'm sure Army, as a American only school in terms of recruiting pool, wouldn't be thrilled about it. I don't blame them, and some of the blue bloods that may pull from the NTDP or what have you, but it is what it is, and we'll find ways. We'll all find ways to benefit our program. We've all got challenges, and we've all got things we can do to help ourselves grow. So it should be interesting.
It's a very good answer of kind of staying neutral and giving pros and everything to each
Yeah,
side.
yeah,
Me personally, I think it's obviously going to benefit NCAA in terms of like there'll be more players to choose from. The pool will get bigger, as you mentioned, but I think it's going to kill like someone like myself that had to make a choice between the OHL and Tier 2 junior. So I went to Tier 2 junior to go play NCAA. Like it's going to kill those leagues because so many players now won't be afraid of, there is no eligibility rule anymore. So they can go play in the OHL. And I mentioned to a buddy of mine, I don't know if those leagues will make a rule, but if you're, for example, in the OHL, I believe it's two or three 16-year-olds have to be on your roster the first year. Is the next year, are they still going to be on the team, or is there going to be, kids that have been 17, 18 making the team, and pushing them out of a roster spot at 17? Like that's something that I'm curious about because like they won't be on the team just because of a rule where now it's like, they go at 16 because their plan is to stay there for 3, 4 years, depending if they get drafted or not. So that's uh that's one way that I kind of see it. And then as you mentioned, like other coaches, Nate Lehman was very, very against it. He likes having we're the only league in the world that, you have a major junior route, you have NCAA, you have Europe. So you have three different paths to find a way to the NHL where, the NBA or NFL, for example, it's like you go play college and then if you can make it to the NFL, you go to the NFL. Like it's basically a one path thing. So
yeah,
he
yeah.
made an argument that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's a massive landscape change. Probably the biggest we've ever seen. It is the biggest we've ever seen because the trickle down to the BCHL to how it impacts the North American Hockey League and the USHL. It's not just Division One coaches and major junior that are getting impacted. Everyone, the player pool will shift. Do guys stay in midget hockey longer because junior spots are more limited, or they're more available? There's just going to be so many different ripple down effects. And it's interesting to see every coach's vantage point of this and what they think. Because some teams have had success and now they're going to have to pivot. And I think Nate's points are totally spot on. But being the strong recruiters that they are, they'll be able to open up another pipeline somewhere, and it will just be interesting to see where teams go from here. Now you've got NIL, you have transfer portal, you have major junior, so there's so many different buckets being dumped into our game, and it's a nerve-wracking time. It's an exciting time for us. Again, we're real to where we're at as an independent program that's just trying to build. But we know that this does mean opportunity to roll up our sleeves and put in some work. And one thing that's great about Division One hockey is there's plenty of players for everyone. It's about putting in the work and building your team to what benefits you. And so now with these potential changes, we're going to have to figure that out ourselves too.
No, 100% agree. Got three more questions for you. I guess the first one I'll start off by saying, as I mentioned multiple times, you've had a very impressive quick rise in your coaching career. Um, Talking to you, I can obviously see why, but any secrets or anything like that for the listeners out there, like to, because everybody, you know, wants to get to their goal as fast as possible, and in most cases, it's not realistic, right? Like it's a marathon, not a race. But someone like yourself that has just put in the work, continue to learn, and proven that you're ready for the next jump. Like, do you have any secrets or any words of advice for people who want to make the jump really quickly?
Yeah, I think I do. I would say like one, we talked about my time at Hobart of like you're a player and then you're a scout, then you're an advisor, then you're, running a company. So like I guess dip your toe in a lot of different things to figure out what suits you, right? Like I really enjoyed the entrepreneurial side of it. But then I found like I loved building teams. I think too is not being afraid to take risks and chances. I'm real to the fact that a lot of the positions that I've held, Albany Academy and Wilkes and LIU, a lot of people like scoffed at the idea of it, or it may have not been the most appealing job at the time, whether it was, being a new program or in Albany Academy's case, coming off like tough seasons and being independent. And so taking chances and betting on yourself and like, running to something that you think you can help make better. And then I think just like doing the work for uh, our whole staff here at LIU to guys I've worked with in the past, we're not afraid to be in the rinks, at all times, our own rink, being on the road, and like that's how you build your name. Good things happen when you're in the hockey rink versus on the golf course. Don't get me wrong, I wish I was on the golf course more, to be honest, and like had more of a life away from this. But I think that, not being afraid to roll up your sleeves and like have some of those stories of watching a junior hockey game in North Carolina and then being in a rink in Maine, and then people saying, look at this guy, he's everywhere. And then the last piece is like figuring out what you are as a coach. And I'm still trying to figure that out, entirely, but having your own identity of like, we're going to be a culture driven program. We are going to be ultra competitive. We're going to treat guys the right way. We're not going to compromise on skill for character. And I think just kind of writing what you are as a coach and what defines you and makes your program great. But I've probably got a lot of other things along the way, but those would be a few kind of little things through, I guess, 10 plus years of doing this now.
No, for sure. I mean, the one that I can relate to the most, or you hear it a lot, is being seen everywhere, right? Like showing that you're willing to do the work, and if you're turning up in all these rinks, everyone's gonna notice, and clearly you're willing to go above and beyond a lot of people. And as you said, it's the summers are a lot of times for the golf course for some people, and you yourself would rather be in a rink or doing work and building towards your program. Do you have any like personal goals where you hope to see yourself maybe in the next 5 to 10 years? Like obviously, I want to say you would like to stay at Long Island University, build a program up, something like that. But do you have any like personal goals outside of it that maybe it's pro or major junior or something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And I don't want to say I necessarily like bounced around out of college, but I was at places for, a shorter period of time. And that's not necessarily a regret. It was the way that the, path had gone. But it's been fun to be here for 5 years and to truly watch it grow and build and get better every year. So, my first goal, like you mentioned, is just to build this thing to whatever that may be, someday joining a league, to building a rink, to doing a lot of things that people doubted, to now here we are. People laughed at the idea of this program, and 10 days ago we were at Notre Dame and able to get a win in their rink, or on the road in Augustana and do the same. And so I want to keep building here for the short term. The long term, I love the college game. I don't necessarily know what that means in terms of where the game is going and what lies ahead, but right now my feet are happily planted here and building. Obviously, landscape ever changing, like I just said, and no real long-term goals, but to see how we can build this thing into the best it can be, and make the Sharks the best program possible right now.
No, that's awesome. Awesome to hear. And as I said, it sounds like everywhere you go, you've had real success in building. So who knows? Maybe down the road you see yourself in a GM role, because obviously that's part of it, the scouting, the building a team. I don't know. Maybe you can't get yourself off the bench. Maybe you enjoy coaching a lot, but it sounds like you'd be a good builder. Something to take pride in. Last question for you, how does your dad kind of view all this? Like as I said, the rise you've had, the success you had, he must be like a proud father knowing that, you grew up in this kind of atmosphere at a young age and now you're doing it for yourself and kind of building your own roots.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really cool to be involved in his hockey journey, and more importantly, I guess, or more so, him be involved in mine. He's given me everything. And so he obviously longtime coach at Army, was a head coach in the American League with the Springfield Falcons, had scouted with Columbus, Buffalo, and now Colorado. And in the interim, he did, 2 years coaching here at LIU, kind of in a volunteer capacity, a way qualified volunteer coach, I should add. But it was just like really cool to have him here. And he's very hands off from like the do this, do that. And the best thing about him is he's a great listener. But the passion he's instilled in me, the love for the game, he is on the road every weekend in a USHL rink or at a college game. And that's kind of where hopefully my work ethic comes from, is like he's not afraid to roll up his sleeves as a proven hockey person, and be in the rinks and study players. He's tried to instill that character specific approach in me of like make sure they're better people than players. But he watches our program, comes to practice, comes to games, and then watches from afar. And I just think it's really special for me to have someone like that in my corner. But our guys, like their faces light up. It's a era of a lot of new school coaches with the video component and systems and structure and all the things that are essential to be successful. But it's sometimes really refreshing to have, kind of an older lens around the game, of like play hard, outcompete the opponent, don't overcomplicate it, get your guys ready to play for you. Okay, see you later. And we spend so much time as coaches trying to reinvent the wheel and overcomplicate it. And his approach, after being in the game for 40 plus years, work hard again, be good people, has been really refreshing. So a bit of a long-winded answer because I could go so many different directions with the impact he's had on me, our program, etc. But it's been really special.
No need to apologize for the winded answer. Obviously, when speaking about family, most people, have unlimited words and it impacts that the family members have had on them. But I appreciate you doing this. Definitely, as I said multiple times, I've seen why you've had the success you've had and been able to build the programs that you have multiple times. I wish you guys all the best this season. I'm definitely going to be following you guys and very curious to see where your program gets over the next couple of years. So again, thanks for taking the time and stopping by the podcast.
Yeah, Andrew, great catching up with you. Kind of funny to connect this small world of potentially playing against each other. I didn't have great numbers in college, so I'm not sure if I produced against you. Probably not, but it's good to catch up in a different capacity years later.
Knowing my luck, you probably had one of your goals in college was probably against me in the barn or something. Like that would be my luck. But no, it was good. It was good catching up, and I'm happy to see that two guys who came from D3 that were probably written off, after going there, have gone on to have, careers in hockey and are still making a living doing it. So appreciate you being here again. And for those listening, go give them a follow on Instagram, the university. If you can catch any games if you're in the Long Island area, get out there. If you're a guy that you feel could be ready to take the step to this program and everything we talked about here, you believe you can do, maybe it could be the school for you. But until next week, choose and ciao.